In only 66 years, we went from barely being able to fly a few feet above the ground to landing on the moon. This was a major accomplishment, not only for science and technology, but for the willpower of America and defeating the Soviet Union for the space race. We often take it for granted the challenges that went involved with trying to get to the moon and getting back, and the amount of time and effort that went into solving those problems. I am very interested in space flight and the history of aviation, especially Apollo 11, since it was the first manned landing on the moon. And Apollo 11, being that first landing, was a major stepping stone for science and technology, but the travel to the moon and getting back is often overlooked in the importance of that event. So I'd like to tell you about how they got to the moon, what they did on the moon, and how they got back to Earth. On July 16th, 1969, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins sat atop the Saturn V rocket, which was on the launch pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center on Cape Kennedy, which is now called Cape Canaveral. They launched and went up into low Earth orbit. There, they did their translunar injection burn, where they fired their engines that put them on a trajectory towards the moon. They also did a couple course corrections, and on the way, they separated from the lunar module and command module, turned around, and redocked so they could be in the proper configuration for once they got to the moon. Once they arrived, they slowed down, entered lunar orbit, and Neil and Buzz went into the lunar module while Michael Collins stayed up in the command module. After they undocked, Neil and Buzz started descending towards the moon, and their landing zone was a bit cratered. There was a whole lot of craters, and so Neil took control of the lunar module and steered away from that crater zone to find a better landing spot. And according to a 2019 CBS News Online article titled "The Inside Story of Apollo 11's Nail-Biting Descent to the Surface of the Moon," written by William Harwood, there were less than 30 seconds of fuel left according to the fuel tank readings during descent. Once they landed on the moon, Neil and Buzz took pictures, collected data, and started conducting experiments. According to NASA's online Apollo 11 mission overview, Neil and Buzz each walked up to 300 feet away from the lunar module. They were taking pics, deploying scientific instruments, and they were conducting experiments. One of those experiments, called the Laser Ranging Retroreflector, is the only experiment that still works to this day. It measures the distance between the Earth and the moon by reflecting lasers that get shot at it. After their EVA, Neil and Buzz slept for about 4 hours, and they got ready to leave. According to a 1969 New York Times newspaper article by John Noble, written the day after the lunar landing, titled "Men Walk on the Moon," their EVA lasted almost 2.5 hours. Once it was time to leave, Neil and Buzz launched from the lunar surface and entered low lunar orbit to rendezvous with the command module and to reunite with Michael Collins. Once Neil and Buzz docked with the command module, they jettisoned the lunar module, which is rumored to still be in orbit around the moon to this day. From there, they conducted their trans-Earth injection burn, which put them on a trajectory back towards the Earth. They also did another couple more course corrections. They re-entered the atmosphere, splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean, and were recovered by the USS Hornet. So Apollo 11 was a major achievement and stepping stone for the advancement of science and technology. But it was more impressive the fact that we overcame the challenges and problems that arose from trying to get there in the first place. Just the fact that they were able to launch from Earth, go to the moon safely, slow down, land there, survive being on the surface of the moon, launch from the moon, leave lunar orbit, and head back home safely is a major challenge on its own and should not be forgotten about. So now every time you look up at the moon, you'll be aware of how those 3 brave men got up there and back.